Hey, how's it going, guys? We're back once again for you, and today we're gonna be starting a cool little series. It's a video series we've been wanting to do for a long time. It's gonna be a Q&A series. I've noticed previously that you guys leave a lot of questions in the comments box on the videos that we post, and I would love to go and answer all those questions for you guys, but we just can't. We just don't have the time. So the next best thing we can do for you is kind of put together these videos, and it's gonna be where we're gonna go through and pick out as many questions as we can, and I'm gonna try and answer them to the best of my ability. You know, it's really hard to give you guys a real direct, thorough answer because I can't see your piercing in person, and that's really what you need to be able to do that. But I've been piercing for 20 years. I have a lot of experience in this industry. I've seen a lot of stuff, just about everything you could ever imagine, and I've helped people just about everything you can ever imagine. And, you know, I'm going to try and bring that experience to you and answer these questions, and hopefully they help you guys. So we'll try and do this, you know, a bi-weekly thing for you guys, and hopefully you guys like it. And, you know, in the future videos, if you guys want a question answered, go ahead and leave your questions in the comment section, and we'll try and get to them as best we can. All right, guys? Alright, so we've put together a list of questions here, and they're just random questions that we picked from previous videos. And in the future, we'll be picking the questions from our Q&A videos, so don't forget to leave your questions in this video right here, okay? But let's get started. So the first question I have here is from Sylvana Thorne, okay? And she asked, can you still get a keloid even if it's healed properly? So yes, you can still get a keloid, but it's rare, okay? Usually if you pass that initial healing period, which depending on your piercing could be 2 to 3 months, could be 6 to 8 months, you're kind of past the keloid zone and you're okay, but there's always exceptions to that rule. You know, if you were to catch it, snag it, and tear it, or anything that's gonna like open it back up again, then you could possibly get a keloid from it, okay? So, the next question is gonna be from Byron DW, all right? And they say, I tried to go from 12 to 14 millimeter after 3 months and I tore it. How long do I wait until I try again? Well, that's a tough question. Everybody's gonna be different. So if you tried to stretch and your ear tore, then your ear wasn't ready. So I would give it a month, try again, be really gentle with it. If you're feeling a lot of resistance, that means you gotta go and wait 2 months. So, you know, every month, just try a little bit and make sure you're using proper lubrication. Make sure it's a single flare plug and not a double flare plug. And just give it a try, you know, but don't force it because you don't want to tear it. If you're pushing too hard and it's just not going, wait another month. You might have to wait 6 months. You know, everybody's different in that regard, okay? And if it's not working, look into half sizes. You can get half sizes out there, okay? All right. Next question from Okami53. For the nape of the neck, would you recommend dermals or a surface piercing? Well, that's probably one of the only piercings I would recommend a surface piercing. Surface piercings, for whatever reason, they just feel great on the nape. I see dermals that can get snagged and caught a lot really easy and popped out. Dermals are great also, but you run the risk of popping them out. I wouldn't recommend putting a surface piercing anywhere else in the body but the nape, just for whatever reason. I don't know, they just work out really well there. All right, now we got Lovely Grace. She says, okay, so I got my nose pierced 3 days ago, and I touched it today on accident, and it moved a bit, and now it hurts more than it did before. Am I gonna die? No, you're not gonna die. You just have a fresh piercing, and you bumped it too soon. It's gonna be sore and tender. You know, anytime you bump it or knock it during the first couple months, it's gonna be sore and tender. And even once it's healed, if you bump it and knock it too hard, it's gonna be sore and tender, okay? So no, you should be okay. Just make sure you do the saltwater soaks and don't bump it again, you know, as best you can, okay? We got Ashley and Jamie Hennard Holland. They asked, I've had my nose pierced for a week, and today it was really moving too much. And it's not the stud, I think the hole I have has stretched. Will it heal up? Chances are your hole didn't stretch, you just pissed it off and irritated it. Yes, the hole will heal up, almost always, as long as you're not messing with it. Your skin's gonna shrink up to the size of whatever your jewelry is. So I don't think you stretched your nose piercing, but if you think you did and it looks like it did, it should heal up. So I wouldn't stress it too much. Just make sure you do the saltwater soaks and leave it alone. Don't touch it anymore, okay? All right, so now we got Miranda's Amazing. She says, Do you literally mean to soak your piercing underwater? I was never told to submerge mine. Yeah, your piercer should have told you to submerge your piercing. The way the whole saltwater soaks works is by actually submerging your piercing. Now, there are a few piercings where they're just so tucked inside your ear or whatnot, and it's really hard to actually submerge your piercing. So in those cases, you could do a compress, but no, a compress isn't nearly as good as actually submerging your piercing. So yes, definitely submerge your piercing. I don't really recommend saltwater sprays, not that they're bad for you, I just don't think they do that much. So submerge your piercing, okay? Now we got Norlina Zayer. She says, hey, I have a question, I need advice about it. So I'm planning on getting a helix and a tragus piercing on both ears at once. Should I do it? Is it safe? I wouldn't be as worried if I got in one ear, but is it just the same as if I get in both ears at the same time? Yeah, you can get pierced on both sides, you know, in both ears. Just know though, it's best not to sleep on a piercing while it's healing, and you're looking at 2 to 3 months for both those piercings to heal. So maybe start with just one side if you're a heavy side sleeper, so you can sleep on the other side, and then once that's healed, you can get the other side done. Or if you're pretty confident you can just sleep on your back during those 2 to 3 months, then go for it. You know, I don't see any problems with it. All right, Abby. She said, can you research your ears if there's some scar tissue from a small rip? Yes, you totally can. As long as that small rip is totally healed up, it's totally fine. Scar tissue will stretch also. Just make sure you're taking your time with the stretches and you're not rushing anything so you don't cause another rip, okay? All right, Barbie Amrins. She just asked, I just got my tragus, and when I finished doing sea salt soaks, it started bleeding. I tried to clean it with a paper towel, but more is coming out and I don't know what to do. All right, so anytime you get an initial piercing, tragus or whatnot, you're gonna get bleeding in the beginning, okay? Saltwater soaks it's gonna pull and draw stuff out of the piercing. That's the way it works. So sometimes it's gonna pull and draw out blood. A fresh piercing, don't be surprised if it bleeds in the beginning stages of the healing, okay? That's totally normal. Now, if it's bleeding a lot and it's not stopping, go back and see your piercer. It could be something with the angles or the jewelry or something like that. But just reading your question, not seeing the piercing, that sounds pretty normal. I wouldn't worry about it. All right, Rena Mendez. She said, my friend said that hers healed in 2 weeks, and she's referring to a septum piercing. Your friend, her septum definitely didn't heal in 2 weeks. You're usually looking at 2 to 3 months to heal those. Probably what happened is just 2 weeks went by and her septum felt like it was healed, and she probably just thought it was healed, but it definitely wasn't healed. And you know, everybody's bodies react differently to different piercings. Some people's bodies, you know, when they get their septum pierced or whatnot, it feels like it's healed instantly, you know? Their body just take to it really well. Other people, you know, it might be swollen for a longer time. They notice more drainage, discharge for a longer time. Everybody's different. But no, her piercing not healed in 2 weeks, but it might have felt like it was healed in 2 weeks, okay? All right, Nika Sleeper. She says, question, does anyone know if it's okay to sleep with their nose piercing covered by a Band-Aid? I thought I was the only one with this ugly bubble on my nose piercing. Help, please. Okay, so I think she had 2 different things going on here, but first off, I always recommend not to put Band-Aids over your piercing, okay? You want your piercing to be able to dry out and air out, all right? Now, any dirt, bacteria, anything like that's gonna harbor in a moist environment, so when you cover it with a Band-Aid, you're just kind of trapping everything in there and keeping everything moist, and it just doesn't really give it an ability to heal. So you want it to be able to air out, especially overnight. So no Band-Aids on your piercings, okay? There's really no benefit I could ever think of that a Band-Aid would help with. Now, if you have what sounds like maybe like some hypertrophic scarring or a keloid on your nose, the Band-Aid's not going to help with that. You know, you're gonna knock your piercing in your sleep, which I'm guessing is what you're worried about. You're gonna knock it with a Band-Aid on there just as much as you are without a Band-Aid. You know, the Band-Aid doesn't offer that much protection. So we have a couple previous videos talking about how to deal with that. So go and look those up. I think I even have a video just on nose piercing, keloids and stuff like that. So feel free to look those up, and you can get some more help in detail with that. All right, Olivia Holt. How many weeks/months are you supposed to do it for? And she's referring to sea salt soaks. Now, everybody's different because every piercing is different. So most piercings on average are 2 to 3 months. You know, if you get something like nipples or a belly button, like a navel, it's usually around 6 to 8 months. I'm assuming maybe you have ear stuff or something of that nature. 2 to 3 months you want to be doing your saltwater soaks. A good rule of thumb is if you can go a solid 2 weeks without seeing any crust or discharge coming from your piercing, you can lay off the saltwater soaks. Okay, so do your saltwater soaks as long as you're seeing like crust and discharge and dry blood and stuff like that. And when you go a solid 2 weeks without seeing that, you can stop doing the saltwater soaks. Okay. All right, Anna Klein Nielsen. She says, I got my nose pierced today with a hoop, and now everybody is saying I should have picked a stud. I'm scared. All right, Anna, well, don't be too scared, but yes, your friends are right. You should always start with a stud. You don't really, here's the thing with rings. Rings usually don't give you enough room for swelling if you go with a small ring, okay? If they pierce with a loose, bigger ring, it's fine, but they can get a lot more movement and knocking and bumping. That's why I usually don't recommend them. But if it's a smaller ring, that's not going to really give you enough room for the swelling and healing. So I would switch it to a stud. For the nose piercing, I always recommend just switching to a stud no matter what. So just watch it. If it feels like it's getting irritated and pissed off, go back to your piercer, have them switch it to a stud, okay? Okay. Now we got Nessa Macius. She says, why can't you use Bactine spray for cleaning a belly button piercing? That's what my piercing artist told me to use, is Bactine. Bactine is not a good product for piercings, okay? It's just a way too harsh of a product, and when you spray it on something like a belly button, it doesn't really discriminate against good or bad. It just goes in and kills everything. So you might have a scab and stuff in there, and it's just gonna go in there to dissolve everything away. So, which means it's like picking out a scab, and you're constantly gonna have to start re-healing, okay? And yeah, it's just too harsh. Any bottle cleaner, usually for piercings, is too harsh. Okay, so our next question is gonna be from Fam Hakito. She says, can I go from a 14 gauge to a 16 gauge with my industrial piercing? Yeah, you totally can. 14 gauge is pretty standard, like universal for piercing an industrial. I always kind of recommend starting with 14 gauge, but I would be lying if I told you I haven't pierced girls with 16 gauge industrials. But as a general rule of thumb, start with the 14 gauge, heal it. It's usually a little bit easier of a heal. And then yeah, your piercer should be able to, if they don't have it in stock, they should be able to order you a 16 gauge barbell for your industrial. There's no problems with that whatsoever. In fact, I think the thinner jewelry is becoming more popular nowadays. It was really taboo a while back, but I think people are being a little more open-minded and starting to notice that the 16 gauges and 18 gauges and all that stuff is fine, and it totally works, okay? Now we got Ella Price. She says, I know you say that you're not supposed to rotate it, but can you move and rotate it when you're cleaning it or not? Because I can't go to the back and I don't move it around. Okay, so basically she's asking, can you spin or rotate your piercing while you're healing? Definitely not. Never ever spin and rotate your piercing, okay? No matter what. As long as you're doing your saltwater soaks, it's gonna do everything that needs to be done for you, okay? Don't worry about the back of the piercing, none of that stuff. Just make sure you're soaking it in salt water, and it's gonna do all that good stuff, all the cleaning and everything, okay? When you rotate and spin it, it's like picking out a scab, and you're just gonna get more scar tissue out of it, and also any dirt or bacteria that's on the outside of the jewelry, you're just moving it right inside that piercing, okay? So no rotating and spinning, I can't stress that part enough, all right? All right, now we got Liliana Montanas. She says, the person who pierced me said put Bactine Max on a Q-tip and clean it with that 2 times a day, morning and night. That's all he told me to do, and he said if it gets infected, don't worry, my belly button won't fall off. It says, I got mine done at a tattoo shop that everyone goes to. All right, well, once again, that kind of refers back to the Bactine question that I just answered a couple questions back. Never ever put Bactine on a piercing. And, once again, it's just way too harsh. And then also, never use a Q-tip. Q-tips are horrible. They have little fibers, and the Q-tips get wrapped around the jewelry and cause little infections and cysts and stuff like that. So that's 2 strikes for you. Don't use either one of those things. And definitely don't rotate and spin your jewelry. So when you rotate and spin it, you're just destroying that piercing. You're chewing it all up, okay? You're breaking up that scab, you're bringing bacteria inside the piercing. So just do saltwater soaks, okay? I have some previous videos we made on the saltwater soaks you can watch, but just do saltwater soaks. Man, that's all you want to do to it, okay? And anybody in this industry worth their grain of salt is gonna recommend saltwater soaks to you. Everybody, it's like not even a secret anymore. Everybody knows to do saltwater soaks for all piercings, okay? As far as like him telling you, don't worry, your belly button won't fall off. I mean, if you're getting an infection, you should be worried. And maybe you should just go and seek out a different piercer. You know, infections are no joke. So if you think you have an infection, you don't have a piercer in your area that you can turn to, then go to the doctor, all right? And they'll help you, okay? All right, next one, Sophie Howie. Says, hey, I really hope you reply. Hey, so I guess we are. And said, this is for my industrial. Would it be an option to get both piercings with separate jewelry until they heal, then put in a bar after they have healed? Yeah, of course. And if anything, it's probably a more ideal way to get an industrial pierced. Not very many people do it, just because most people come in, they want industrial, they just want the bar right away, and I don't blame them. But if you want to start with 2 separate bars, yeah, I mean, that's amazing. It's going to heal really, really fast and really, really good. You're not going to have that constant pressure that 1 bar gives you. So yeah, of course, go for it. No problem at all. I highly recommend it, okay? Robert Cameron says, I have a question. I hope you can answer. I got a reverse PA 6.5 weeks ago. How long before it can be taken out for a few hours at a time safely? Is sounding okay to do after getting this piercing? So that's a tough one to answer. Reverse PAs, you kind of never really want to take them out for a few hours. I mean, they just tend to close up really, really fast. Maybe something years down the road, you can take it out for a few hours, but I'm not going to recommend taking it out at all. I would just say leave it in there for the, you know, the life of the piercing. It's just a lot of tissue to try and force jewelry back through. In a couple hours, that piercing's going to shrink up really, really tight. As far as sounding goes, you know, if you can heal it for 3 or 4 months, you know, I think sounding would cause a lot of trauma to it and be really irritating to it. Give it at least 3 or 4 months to kind of heal, and then you can kind of slowly start easing your way into it and see how it does, all right? Now we got Deanna Pinkney. How do I know if I have too thick of a bar in my piercing when I switch it out to a new one? All right, I'm kind of confused on this question. How do I know if I have too thick of a bar piercing when I switch it out? Okay, cool. This is one of those questions that you know, I guess I would need to know what piercing you have and what size the jewelry is. But if you went to a reputable piercer, they're usually gonna pierce you with a pretty standard size for that piercing. There is such thing as too thin for piercings, not so much too thick for piercings. So go and talk to your piercer and ask them, what is the thinnest I can put in this piercing? And then just know, like, it doesn't really matter thickness wise. Like, you can put in whatever thickness you want, but make sure you do it safely and correctly. So that's where you might need a professional piercer to kind of help you out, okay? Cool. Now we got from Lee Serenati. If your nipples are flat, do you have any advice about that? That's a tough one. Everybody's are different, you know. If your nipples are flat, you might not be the best candidate for that piercing. You can try and see if your nipples get, you know, a little bit hard, then you can pierce them when they're hard, and that'll kind of help pull everything out, and then they might heal that way. But you definitely run a higher risk of rejection because your nipples are going to flatten out, and that causes a little bit of tension with those bars in there. I would go and talk to a professional piercer in your area and see what they recommend. But just go into it knowing you might not be the best candidate for that piercing. Okay. But not to say you can't do it, because I've definitely pierced plenty of girls with flat nipples, and it actually pulls their nipples out and they heal them great, no problem at all. Okay. All right. So last question we're gonna get to today is from Piper Williams. She says, "Is it normal for a nipple to bruise a lot a few hours after having the piercing done?" Yes, it is totally normal. All bruising is a little bit of bleeding underneath the skin. You actually see it with a lot of piercings. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too much. You probably get bruising in those first couple weeks. Totally normal. It'll go away. It'll heal. Just make sure you're doing your saltwater soaks. Also, make sure you have the proper jewelry size in there. So make sure you got pierced by a piercer that you trust and knows exactly what they're doing. As long as your jewelry's good, your sizing's good, yeah, and your placement's good on there also, bruising's not a problem at all. I wouldn't even worry about it. Cool. All right, guys. So we're gonna try and keep these videos somewhat short so you guys will actually watch them. And yeah, hopefully you guys like that. And like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section below. Next video, we're gonna shoot for maybe like every couple weeks. I'll get to them. I'll try and answer as many of the questions in the comment section of this video as I can. And hopefully you guys got something out of that. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.